For years, they controlled everything, the truth, the lies, even life and death itself. They made my brother disappear and thought they had buried their darkest secrets forever. But I found what was never meant to be found. And now, the whole world knows. They tried to stop me. They tried to silence me. But some truths are too big to stay hidden, and this time, there's no going back. The wind howled through the empty streets as I walked towards the old mansion at the edge of town. The house loomed in the distance, its towering structure barely visible through the thick fog that clung to the ground like a living entity. Every step I took felt heavier, as if something unseen was pulling me back, warning me to turn around. But I couldn't. Not now. Not when I was so close. A crumpled letter burned in my pocket, the words still fresh in my mind. Come alone. Midnight. The truth awaits. The letter had no signature, but I knew who it was from. The same person who had vanished 10 years ago without a trace, Aiden. My brother. The one everyone claimed was dead. My heart pounded as I reached the mansion's front door. The wood was aged, the paint peeling away like old memories refusing to be forgotten. I hesitated for just a moment before pushing it open. The door creaked loudly, protesting my entry, and I stepped inside. The air was thick with dust, the scent of forgotten time filling my lungs. Moonlight filtered through the cracked windows, casting eerie shadows along the long hallway. I moved forward cautiously, my footsteps muffled by the decaying carpet beneath me. The house was exactly as I remembered it, unchanged, untouched, as if frozen in time. Then, a sound. A faint rustling from upstairs. I tensed, my breath hitching. Aiden? I whispered, my voice barely carrying through the silence. No answer. I swallowed hard and took a deep breath before ascending the grand staircase. Each step groaned under my weight, the echo swallowed by the darkness above. My fingers trailed along the wooden railing, the familiar carvings beneath my touch a painful reminder of the past. Reaching the second floor, I turned towards the room that had once been his, Aiden's sanctuary, the place he had spent most of his time. The door stood slightly ajar, an invitation or a warning, I couldn't tell. I pushed it open fully, my pulse hammering against my ribs. The room was dimly lit by a single candle placed on the desk. And in the flickering glow, sitting in the old armchair near the window, was a figure. Aiden. I gasped, my hands shaking. He looked almost the same, tired eyes, unkempt hair, the scar on his cheek just as I remembered. But there was something different about him. Something haunting. His eyes met mine, filled with an emotion I couldn't decipher. You finally came, he said, his voice low, almost resigned. My throat tightened. I thought you were dead? He gave a hollow chuckle. They wanted you to think that. Who? I took a cautious step forward. Aiden, what's going on? He sighed, rubbing a hand over his face before looking at me with a mixture of sorrow and urgency. I don't have much time. They're coming. I froze. Who's coming? Aiden stood abruptly, grabbing a small, dust-covered box from the desk and thrusting it into my hands. Take this. Whatever happens, don't let them get it. Before I could ask anything else, a loud crash echoed through the house. Heavy footsteps thundered below, and Aiden's expression turned grim. They found me, he whispered. Then, meeting my eyes one last time, he said the words that sent a chill through my soul. Run. The weight of her words pressed against my chest like a vice. My fingers clenched the letter, my knuckles turning white. Who took him? I repeated, my voice barely more than a whisper. Myra exhaled sharply, her eyes darting toward the bookstore's entrance. The door creaked slightly, as if responding to some unseen force outside. We can't talk here, she said, standing up abruptly. Come with me. I hesitated. The rational part of my brain screamed at me to walk away, to pretend I had never received the note, never stepped into this place. But the ache of curiosity, the longing for truth, was stronger. I followed her through a narrow corridor in the back, where an old wooden door led to the alleyway behind the store. The moment we stepped outside, the cold air bit at my skin. Myra didn't stop. She walked quickly, her boots splashing through puddles as we navigated the dimly lit streets. Myra, slow down, I urged. You still haven't told me what's going on. She finally stopped at a rusted metal gate, pushing it open with both hands. Beyond it lay an abandoned courtyard, overgrown with ivy. A single streetlight flickered, illuminating the cracked concrete ground. They're still looking for it, she said, turning to face me. And they think you have it. My stomach twisted. Have what? She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small, weathered key. The proof. The key to everything they tried to bury. I stared at it. It looked ordinary, just an old brass key, but the way she held it, with such careful reverence, made it seem like something more. Where does it lead? I asked, my voice laced with uncertainty. Myra's expression darkened. To the answers you've been searching for. She took a deep breath. But getting there won't be easy. They will do anything to stop us. A sharp sound cut through the silence, footsteps approaching fast. Myra grabbed my wrist. We have to run. Now. We sprinted through the dark alleyways, our breaths ragged and uneven. The footsteps behind us grew louder, closer. I didn't dare look back. Myra took a sharp turn, leading us into an abandoned subway station. The stale air smelled of rust and neglect. Down here, she whispered urgently, pulling me toward the tracks. We slid into the shadows just as a group of men in dark coats entered the station. Their voices were low, but I caught bits and pieces of their conversation. She has the key. She's not alone. Find them. Myra grabbed my hand, squeezing it tight. I held my breath as the men spread out, their flashlights scanning the station. One beam came dangerously close to where we hid. I felt my pulse in my throat. And then, a loud crash echoed from the far end of the tunnel. The men turned, rushing toward the noise. Myra didn't hesitate. Come on, she whispered, pulling me onto the tracks. We ran into the darkness, the cold steel rails guiding our escape. I didn't know where we were going, but I knew one thing for sure. We were running out of time. The tunnel seemed endless, stretching into blackness as we ran. Our footsteps echoed eerily off the damp walls, the faint trickle of water the only other sound. We can't outrun them forever, I panted, gripping Myra's arm. Where does this tunnel lead? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she pulled a flashlight from her jacket, flicking it on to reveal an old service door to the side. Here, she whispered. This should take us somewhere safe. I hesitated. And if it doesn't? Then we'll find another way. Myra pushed the door open, revealing a narrow stairwell leading up. We climbed quickly, my breath heavy in my chest. At the top, Myra pressed her ear against the door before nudging it open. We stepped into an old maintenance shed filled with rusted tools and broken furniture. A single window overlooked the city beyond. Myra locked the door behind us and turned to me. We need to move fast. They won't stop until they have this key. I exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over my face. Myra, what's really going on? Why is this key so important? She hesitated before pulling an old envelope from her bag. Because it's the last piece of the puzzle. I took the envelope from her hands, slowly opening it. Inside were newspaper clippings, photos, and a letter in the same handwriting as before. They thought they erased the truth. But secrets don't stay buried forever. A chill ran down my spine as I looked up at Myra. Then we exposed them. Her lips curled into a determined smile. Then we exposed them. A knock rattled the shed door. The dim light from the warehouse's single broken bulb flickered, casting eerie shadows on the dusty walls. Ryan's fingers trembled as he plugged the flash drive into the old laptop, its screen flickering to life with a low hum. I stood beside him, my breath shallow, my mind racing. Hundreds of files appeared, documents, surveillance footage, coded messages. Each one held a piece of the truth, a truth that had cost Ryan 3 years of his life. This is it, he murmured. The proof we need. I leaned closer, scanning the list of files. Some names jumped out immediately, high-ranking officials, law enforcement officers, even a few people I recognized from our small town. My blood ran cold. Ryan, this isn't just about you, is it? I whispered. He exhaled sharply. No. It's about everything. About the people who think they own the world, who decide what's hidden and what's exposed. I was just a loose thread they couldn't afford to leave hanging. A sudden noise outside made me freeze. Footsteps. The low murmur of voices. They found us, I whispered. Ryan didn't hesitate. He grabbed my wrist, yanking me behind a stack of old crates just as the warehouse doors burst open. Heavy boots stomped against the concrete floor. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. They were spotted running this way, a gruff voice said. Find them. And if they have the drive, eliminate them. A cold chill ran through me. Ryan gritted his teeth, gripping my hand tighter. He slowly reached for the laptop, eyes scanning the files frantically. We have to send this out now, he whispered. I nodded, barely breathing as he clicked on an email draft, attaching the largest files. His fingers flew over the keyboard, entering a single recipient, anonymous source. Ryan. I hissed as I heard footsteps approaching. Almost there, he muttered. A loud bang rang out. My breath caught as I saw the laptop screen splinter, shot right through. The message hadn't been sent. Ryan shoved me down as bullets tore through the crates around us. We're out of time, he shouted. I clenched my fists. We couldn't lose. Not now. Not when the truth was within reach. I spotted an old, rusted fire escape ladder leading up to a window. The roof. I whispered urgently. Ryan followed my gaze, nodding. Go. We sprinted toward it, dodging bullets as wood and metal shattered around us. My heart hammered as I grabbed the ladder, pulling myself up. Ryan followed, moving faster than I'd ever seen him. Just as we reached the top, I heard a voice yell, "They're escaping. Don't let them get away." Another gunshot. Ryan gasped. I turned just in time to see him stumble, gripping his side. Blood. Ryan! I screamed, grabbing him. His face twisted in pain, but he pushed me forward. Go! Don't stop! Tears burned my eyes, but I obeyed, dragging him up the last rung onto the roof. The cold night air hit me like a slap. Below us, the men were swarming, their shouts echoing in the darkness. Ryan groaned, leaning against me. We need to send the files. I glanced around desperately, and then I saw it. A nearby rooftop had a glowing Wi-Fi router on a terrace. If I could just get over there. Hold on, I whispered. Then, before I could second-guess myself, I grabbed the flash drive, tightened my grip on Ryan, and took a leap of faith. The moment my feet left the rooftop, time seemed to slow. The wind howled in my ears, my heart hammering as I clutched the flash drive in one hand and Ryan's arm in the other. For a split second, I thought we weren't going to make it. Then, slam! We hit the adjacent rooftop, rolling over the gravelly surface. Pain shot through my knees and palms, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. Ryan groaned beside me, his hand pressed to his wounded side. Blood seeped through his fingers, dark and glistening under the flickering rooftop lights. I dropped to my knees beside him. Ryan, hold on. We're almost there? His breathing was ragged. You have to send it. I looked up, spotting the Wi-Fi router on a nearby terrace. Relief flooded through me. If I could connect to it, I could send everything. The truth wouldn't die with us. But then, bang! A bullet whizzed past, shattering the light fixture beside me. I gasped, throwing myself over Ryan as another shot rang out. They're up there, someone shouted below. Ryan's grip on my wrist tightened. Go. Now. I'm not leaving you. He shook his head weakly. You have to. They can't get that drive. Tears burned in my eyes, but I knew he was right. I took a deep breath, shoved the flash drive into my pocket, and sprinted toward the terrace. My legs screamed in protest, exhaustion weighing me down, but I pushed forward. I reached the router, yanked my phone from my pocket, and connected in seconds. The files, all of them, were still intact on the drive. I started the transfer. 30%, 50%, 70%. A crash behind me made me spin around. A man in a black tactical suit had climbed onto the roof. His gun was aimed right at me. Step away from the laptop, he ordered. I froze, my fingers hovering over the send button. The transfer had reached 90%. I needed 10 more seconds. Don't do this, I said, my voice steady despite the terror clawing at my throat. He took a step forward. You don't know what you're dealing with. I glanced at Ryan. He was watching me, barely holding on. If I didn't finish this, everything he had suffered for would be for nothing. 95%. 96%. The man's finger moved to the trigger. I made a decision. With a scream, I lunged forward, grabbing the laptop and smashing it against the router. Sparks flew as the gun fired. Bang! Pain exploded in my shoulder. I hit the ground hard, my vision blurring. The laptop skidded across the rooftop, but the screen still flickered. I forced myself up, biting back a cry. The file transfer. 100% complete. I slammed my trembling hand on the send button. A second gunshot rang out. And then, everything went black. The world flickered between darkness and blinding light. A dull, throbbing pain radiated from my shoulder, but I forced myself to stay conscious. Gunshots. Shouting. Heavy boots pounding against the rooftop. I tried to move, but my limbs felt like lead. Then, hands grabbed me, yanking me upright. She sent it, one of the masked men growled. It's too late. Through my blurred vision, I saw Ryan struggling against two men restraining him. Blood streaked his face, but his eyes were locked onto mine, full of fear, full of hope. They knew it, too. The truth was out. The leader, the man who had shot me, pressed his gun against my forehead. Where did you send it? I let out a weak chuckle. Everywhere. A muscle in his jaw twitched. You think you've won? I don't think, I whispered. I know. Suddenly, sirens. Loud. Close. The entire rooftop lit up in flashing red and blue. A booming voice echoed through the air. This is the FBI. Drop your weapons and surrender. The masked men panicked. One tried to grab Ryan, but he fought back, elbowing him in the gut and twisting free. I used the distraction to stumble backward, barely avoiding the gun still aimed at me. Then, boom. A deafening explosion rocked the building. Smoke and fire erupted from below. Someone screamed. The rooftop shook beneath us, and I felt my footing slip. I was falling. Strong arms caught me. Ryan. I got you, he gritted out, pulling me back to solid ground. I collapsed against him, coughing, my entire body screaming in pain. Did it work? Ryan glanced at the chaos unfolding. The masked men were either running or being tackled by SWAT officers. Their leader, the man who had threatened me, was on his knees, cuffed, furious, defeated. Ryan smiled. Yeah. It worked. A wave of relief crashed over me. I closed my eyes, letting the moment sink in. For years, Ryan had been a ghost. The truth had been buried. But now, the world knew. The files we had leaked were everywhere, on the news, on social media, in the hands of journalists who would never let this die. Justice was coming. For Ryan. For me. For everyone who had ever been silenced. I took a deep breath and looked at the sunrise breaking over the city skyline. We were finally free.